And yeah, we're going. All right. And it's another edition of the RotoHackers podcast. We are the unauthorized reporters of fantasy football news and information. My name is A.J. Herschel, also known as The Kid. And with me is fellow RotoHacker, it's Jared! And Judah Buddha isn't joining us tonight. He's a little bit tired, but we are still here. If the NFL has any smidgen of news, we will squeeze it out for any amount of content possible.
We've got very exciting news.
Go ahead.
Exciting news.
Go ahead. Start us off, Jared.
You've probably seen it, but we are gonna get in 2 nights, just 2 nights away, a 3-hour draft special. 2 hours is not enough.
Nope.
2.5 hours is not enough. We need 3 hours. I'm sorry, not a draft schedule. Well, we're drafting the schedule.
Right, yeah.
More or less. We're drafting the schedule. We're unveiling the schedule. So, 3-hour schedule unveiling Thursday night.
That's insane.
Who knows what could happen? Roger Goodell could fall asleep in his chair. There's no telling what.
Oh, my goodness. I don't even know how they're going to do it. They've never done, such a big viewing of the schedule. It's just it's 3:00 on a Wednesday morning. All right, we'll drop the schedules today.
We're so desperate for sports. They know that people are going to watch anything.
Pretty much. So that's really interesting because we know the teams we know who everyone's going to play. We just don't know how it's all going to be formatted, which is going to be really interesting.
And it's very important for fantasy purposes. More important, really, for fantasy purposes than it is for maybe for real, for the real life purposes. Because weeks 15 and 16, that's where it really counts, and that's where that influences the way I draft. Maybe not quite as much this year, because in other years, I think like we talked about maybe Saturday. I think it was Saturday when I talked about this.
Yeah.
There seems to be just more parity across the league in the coming season, to where it doesn't look like there aren't many teams that are just going to be pushovers, maybe Jacksonville, but the Redskins, Jacksonville, but there's not a ton of teams where you can be like, oh yeah, I want my number one running back going against them in week 15. Now there are some teams that I think we could say we don't want our players going against, but there aren't as many that you can clearly identify as the ones you do. So, but either way, I think it's more it's more interesting really for fantasy purposes.
I think one of the crazy things that I always like to look at is when I like to look at a lot of teams' December schedules, especially because it's right after that Thanksgiving break, you're heading into the fantasy playoffs. And those 4 games to me are almost sometimes the most important, because they can make or break a lot of teams, especially teams like Dallas, who can just be absolutely atrocious in December. It really just depends on that month. I feel is more important than any other month when it comes to scheduling.
Right. Yeah. That's mostly what it comes down to. So,
and to your point about teams being pushovers, even the ones like you said, Jacksonville, I completely agree they're going to be terrible this year, or at least their defense is. But then even Washington, they still got Chase Young, they got Thomas Davis out of retirement. You've got defensive coach Ron Rivera. I mean, they could be so much better. There's no telling what's going to happen this year.
Right. True. So it does make it harder, in terms of figuring out what, is there anybody that really has a golden matchup for week 15 or 16?
Yeah. Man, I don't even know how to feel about a lot of these teams anymore, because it's just we know who you're playing, but we don't know when. The tension is killing me. I've never had a schedule bother me this much.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times I'll look at it in terms of okay, who are they playing when? Do I want to try to make it? I actually haven't been to a Colts game in person now I'm trying to think when was the last year that I was up there, because it was probably 2015, because Because 2016, I think that was when I had gone back to school. I was kind of busy with all that.
Yeah.
2017, I held off because I wasn't sure Andrew Luck was going to play, and he didn't.
Right.
And then 2018, it didn't work out. And then 2019, I was going to go, and all that happened. So, and then now 2020, I don't think there's going to be in person. I don't think fans are going to be able to attend games for the season, but maybe we'll see. So even if I could, I don't know that I would. That would probably be one of the last places I'd want to go, is packed into a building with 50 or 60,000 people. So unfortunately, maybe not again. Maybe 2021. But,
just keep pushing it back, moving forward.
Right. So yeah.
So Thomas H. in the chat tonight, he says, "Thanks for letting me dominate your mock draft on Saturday." Oh boy.
Well, I had the second pick in the previous one. Mm-hmm. And I came out just, it was clear I was going to win that league. And so I took the 8th pick, I think. So I think Yahoo just tends to not grade as generously if you have a later pick. Maybe that definitely needs to be Judah's excuse since he was at the bottom spot there. See, I was right. See, it still had me slated for 4th. And so I was still going to make the playoffs. And then what I would have done is I would have just pulled an upset over Thomas H. in that first week. So no big deal.
There you go.
Big deal.
And Thomas H., I mean, let's be honest. He went ahead and took first just so he could take McCaffrey.
Yeah, right. I mean, obviously it's going to grade on a, you probably got like an extra 250 points just for drafting Christian McCaffrey. So I feel like it was skewed a little bit there.
Yeah. So funny thing, actually, I went back and looked at the mock draft, the first mock draft we had this year before the official draft came in. And the standings changed after the draft. So it bumped me up to 2nd instead of 3rd after that. Yeah.
Oh, was I still in first?
You were leagues ahead. You're nice, like 100 points ahead of all of us.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I didn't know that. Maybe it just constantly changes based on how they reevaluate. Yeah. I mean, so maybe like, you could, I don't know, go in at right before September and it would have changed again. Yeah, that's interesting. I thought it would stay fixed.
Yeah, me too. So that was really crazy because I was like, I need to remember what this was. And then, I'm 2 now. That works. Okay.
Right.
So there isn't like a ton of player news, but one of the funniest things, old man, father time, the Iron Man Frank Gore.
I saw
goes
that.
To the Jets.
Well, and I tell you what, I actually was going to bring up a piece of Jets news, not that. We'll do that first. I mean, gosh, that guy, he has to just really love football because I mean, he's making a lot of money compared to your average person, but in terms of, a lot of money for the NFL for a position that's going to take a pretty good beating. Yeah. You would think he's probably in a position by now where, he definitely doesn't need the money. So he must just really love playing the game to just get back out there and do it year by year. Obviously he's not going to, I think even if Le'Veon Bell went down, I don't know how much, fantasy value Gore would have. They would probably bring somebody else in. But I think let's see, I can't remember if they drafted someone like in the 4th or 5th round. I might have to look that up. I can't remember if they did or not. I know they didn't take anyone early, like in the first 2 days. But I was feeling pretty good about Le'Veon Bell's carries because, they didn't take anybody early, but I also saw something else where the coach was talking about trying to, cut back on some of those. And so, even Le'Veon Bell, who to me kind of probably got pushed up a little bit by virtue of the fact that so many of these other backfields got messier during the draft. Right. Not that his situation really improved, but just that it improved by some of the others falling below him. But now, if they're really serious about trying to cut back on his carries, then that's really the value to him, because, it's not like the Jets are a really high-powered offense that are going to put him in position to score a bunch, I don't think. Right. So the value there is really him just getting a ton more volume than other people. So if it's not there, then he, it knocks him down again.
So the Jets did take a running back in round 4. They took Lamical P. Ryan. So
that's right. Samaje's cousin. Yeah.
Right.
Fourth round. That's not terrible. I mean, obviously that's not a guy that you're expecting to come in and start, but fourth round guy. I mean, he could be better than you think. And I mean, between him and Gore, they could kind of eat in there a little bit.
Yeah. Go ahead. I just think it's so crazy thinking like Frank Gore is 36 years old, which is way like over the hill for most running backs. And he hasn't had 1,000 yards in 4 years. He's barely averaging 3.6 yards a carry at this point. And yet one of the things I always found crazy about him is he is eerily secure with the ball. Like he almost never fumbles, which I think is probably his biggest value right now, is that maybe they put him in goal line pushes because he's not going to lose the football.
Right. Yeah, I would have to assume that, he's there for, a little bit of leadership. They've just sort of a veteran guy that they can count on in the locker room. Sam Darnold's just, I guess, going into his 3rd year now, and Le'Veon Bell, there was some friction there with him and the team last year. I guess there was one week where he was sick with the flu, and then he went bowling or something like that. And then there was that. So it's just been like this kind of riff with Adam Gase. So yeah, maybe he's there for, sort of a veteran presence. And then, like you say, I mean, it's really more about ball security and getting some tough yards as opposed to, obviously, as opposed to being a guy who's going to, blaze a 4.3 40 down the field or something like that. So
So what's this other Jets news you heard about?
So the other thing was Quincy Enunwa went on the PUP list for the season. So he's out for the season. So already, yeah.
What did he do?
I didn't even read the story to see what the injury was. But now you have to think about the fact that, like, I really didn't want any part of the Jets receiver situation prior to the draft, because I thought that they would probably draft CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy. And then it just kind of gets messy because you've got, a talented rookie, but a guy who's still a rookie. You've got Brashad Perryman, who finished well with Tampa last year and got a contract, but, hadn't really, outside of that 1 month with Tampa, had, just been a complete bust. You had Crowder, who had been pretty good in the slot, and then Enunwa. And so it just seemed like it was just going to be a bunch of okay guys. And, is anybody really going to rise to the top out of that? Well, then the Jets didn't use their 1st round pick on a receiver, and they took Denzel Mims later. Right. But he, I think, is going to be more of a project. He's got, he's very athletic, and he's got, so he's got a good highlight reel, but, he's not a great route runner. So I'm not that worried about him, making that much of a dent into like Perryman and Crowder's numbers, the targets they're going to get. And then you've got Enunwa, who's now gone for the season. So really, I think it's more Perryman and Crowder. And, for me, I think that makes Perryman a pretty good value then. I think he's probably been, I don't remember him getting drafted in our mock drafts.
I don't think so.
So I think he's gone undrafted. I mean, I think he's a pretty good late round value now.
Really?
Maybe him and Crowder both. I think Crowder's, got more of a limited ceiling. I mean, he can get a ton of catches, but Perryman is a lot more interesting to me now.
Yeah, especially because, and this is the thing I think that scares me the most, is that yes, the Jets bolstered their offensive line. Yes, they got a good wide receiver, but is it going to matter? Because Darnold, I mean, he only threw for 3,000 yards. Granted, he didn't have a great receiving core, and Le'Veon was his third best receiver last year.
Yeah.
And I think the Jets scare me, and Perryman could be good, but I think the Jets are going to be one of the teams, and this includes Le'Veon, that I'm going to try to steer clear from in most drafts and maybe pick Perryman up late. But especially now because you've got the Bills number one, the Patriots defense is still going to be good. Belichick is great at drafting defense, if nothing else. And the Dolphins, I mean, they just got better. They had 50 draft picks, for crying out loud.
Right.
So they right now are like the weakest link in the AFC East.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Darnold, I think mainly the thing that scares me is what you said, like with what we've talked about with the schedule, with having to play the Bills defense twice and having to play the Patriots defense twice. That's the really tough part if you're trying to, Darnold, obviously, if you're in a deeper league or a 2-quarterback league or something like that, I think he's, perfectly fine. But in a 10-team league, he's a lot tougher to trust even as your second quarterback, I think, with a lot of the options that are out there. One thing I guess I will say for him is, last year he was limited to 13 games. Actually, both seasons he's been limited to 13 games. I can't remember, maybe his rookie season, maybe it was just because they were starting McCown or somebody before him. But last year, he had mono. So last year he missed, a chunk, nearly a month of the season early on, and then had to kind of try to get back into the swing of things. So he did improve last year. He did, kind of make some progress, but yeah, overall as a fantasy quarterback, it still wasn't really something that paid off for people. We thought he was going to have a pretty good schedule down the stretch, where, he was going to get this row of teams, the Giants, the Redskins, the Raiders, the Bengals, the Dolphins, before things got a little tougher towards the end. That was still pretty hit or miss with him, though. He delivered a few, pretty good games in there, but he also had some duds on games that he should have kind of, balled out for people. So, he is kind of hard to trust, but I think, there's with a young guy there's always the potential that he could exceed expectations. He could something could really click for him in that third year. If his receivers play, maybe a little bit better than what they really are.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and the other thing too is just like with the Patriots and Bills, as good as their defenses are coming in, say you get a couple of injuries, Stephon Gilmore goes down for the Patriots, their top corner or something like that, then, that landscape can change too. So I'm not planning to draft Darnold in any 10-team leagues, but I think he's a guy who potentially, if you have an injury or something like that, if he ends up, playing a little bit better than expected, he could end up being a guy that, could have sort of a sneaky season.
Yeah, especially because last year, I know we talked a lot about, as the season kind of wound down, that there were a lot of really good streamable quarterbacks, and Darnold was one of them. And he plays well at home too, which I guess we're going to have to wait till Saturday to figure out what his home schedule is, of course. Right. But that's the thing I think that's going to be really interesting is their home games, especially.
Yeah. He was really, last year he was sort of, almost kind of like a throwback to how Big Ben was in some of those earlier years, where just great at home, but could not trust him on the road. So, so I don't know. We'll see if Darnold breaks out a little bit. Let's see. I guess another thing I saw was, this isn't really news. It's hard to tell how much to read into this, but, Odell Beckham Jr. was, basically attributing a lot of last season to injuries. So, I guess he had off-season surgery to repair a core muscle in January, and had some other things dinging him up. So I know Judah's high on him this year. It's still tough for me to, really kind of trust him before, I don't know, probably like a mid 4th round pick or something like that, if that, but who knows? Maybe Judah's onto something there with OBJ.
Yeah, we'll have to see. And I think Odell scares me a lot. It's like the Browns are one of those teams where mentally I'm like, okay, they should be good. They've got the talent. And I mean, theoretically they could. Second year with Odell and Baker. They got Odell and Baker again. They've got Chubb and Kareem going again. And I don't know what the state of the Steelers is going to be with Ben, but no Antonio and no Le'Veon to say the same. So theoretically, they should be good, but I'm worried. Odell is the wide receiver that I think is going – I still think he's going too high in mock drafts especially.
Yeah, and having all those weapons in Cleveland worries me a little bit because it's not like a situation where Baker – has ever seemed locked in on OBJ. I mean, it's almost been sort of the reverse where why are you not throwing the ball to him? So, they've got Jarvis Landry. They had Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, Hunt catching a lot of passes out of the backfield. And then they added Austin Hooper at tight end too, to go along with Njoku, who, he was hurt for a lot of last season. So, all of the weapons there in Cleveland, plus, the fact that Baker has never seemed, locked in on OBJ does kind of worry me a little bit because sometimes, even if there's an absence of talent, with a receiver or for a receiver with their quarterback position, DeAndre Hopkins has still had, some great seasons with scrub quarterbacks there in Houston. Right. So, but if they're not throwing, but it's all about the volume, he was still getting, 10, 15 plus targets. Right. So I just don't know if that's ever really going to be there with OBJ and Baker.
And I think that's the thing that scares me the most because since he's a number one, he should be getting as many targets as he gets. Like you think of all the other number ones in the league, DeAndre, you think of Julio. Thinking Allen Robinson got more targets than him last year, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
With Mitch Trubisky throwing to him. And that's the thing, especially when you get to a PPR league, I stay even farther away from Odell because I'm like, he's not going to catch passes. He just isn't. Yeah. Chubb runs the team, whether Baker likes it or not. And then Landry takes away just enough of Odell's targets to make it too much for me. It's too much.
Right. Yeah. I have a hard time drafting him above really any of those guys like DJ Moore, AJ Brown, Cortland Sutton, because there's just more of a clear number one, in those offenses. So,
it's funny you mentioned. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No. Mine's a different thing. Go ahead.
Well, I just coming up. We're talking about DJ Moore. I was thinking about. I saw a thing today saying that Cam. Of course, this is.
Oh no.
This is sources, so we'll see how accurate it is. But that Cam was not willing to take a backup role as a quarterback. That he won't sign anywhere unless he's a starter. Which, that just means you're going to be waiting for a while, because we're in a situation where Jameis Winston just had to take a deal as a backup. Andy Dalton had to just take a deal as a backup. So there's not going to be, a starting gig, presumably out there for Cam until maybe someone gets injured.
And that's the weird thing because you think about the other quarterbacks who are like, now second stringers, and bring up Andy Dalton as an example. Cam's a much better athlete. This is a guy, someone brought this up to me a couple days ago. This is a guy who in the last couple of years won MVP and went to Super Bowl 50, which I think was 2 years ago at this point. Was that 2017?
I'm trying to think. I think it might have been maybe it was 2017. Yeah, because it was him. Yeah, because that was the one, wasn't it? Was it Broncos against Panthers?
It was Broncos. That was the one where Peyton hung on by Von Miller. That's the year that Von Miller won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was that was actually 2016.
16. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So
he should be way better than guys like Andy Dalton with the athleticism, the arm, everything, and yet Kyle Allen's in front.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I think the fact that Carolina started Kyle Allen, over him at some point there, probably maybe teams are getting scared off by that as part of it. I think with Cam, it's just hard to know. I think out of all the quarterbacks in the NFL, the least about what you're getting with him. Like Jameis Winston, what his faults are. The interceptions and things like that. With Cam, you don't know how healthy he is. Like how much of the I think I was looking the other day where he's turning, I think 31 or about to turn 31. And for a mobile quarterback, obviously if you're a pocket passer, Tom Brady's shown you can, go for 10 plus more years if you want to. But, with Cam, he's always had a strong arm, but he's never had the most accurate arm. Right. And so I think teams are probably afraid, gosh, if the feet are gone and he's forced to stand in the pocket there, what are we really going to get with that? So I don't know. I don't know what the landscape's going to look like for him.
Yeah, you see reverse redaction in the chat tonight. Please subscribe, like, and comment. You already know everything. He says Cam won't play a second fiddle. Yeah, him, and which really shocked me when Jameis took a deal with New Orleans to play second fiddle. Yeah, because I would think he wouldn't. You've got Dalton, Mariota. Yeah, they're willing to play second string. I'll come in if your guy gets hurt. But I would thought Jameis was going to be with Cam. That really shocked me.
I think that's a smart move on Jameis's part because he gets to go, learn from Drew Brees and Sean Payton. Yeah. I think, if anybody is going to be able to, get him to cut down on his mistakes as a passer, it would be those two there. So I think Jameis, made a smart move, and he's only, I think, 26. He's still a relatively young guy. I don't think Aaron Rodgers started till he was like 24 or something like that, 25 maybe. So Jameis is still, a young guy. If he goes in and, and there's always a chance that, Drew Brees could get hurt again, or even if he doesn't, that Brees is leaving within 2 years, maybe one. And so Jameis doesn't really have to even get on the field to prove himself to other teams that might trade for him or sign him as a free agent. All he has to do is prove it to the Saints that, hey, I'm the guy that you want to come in and take over for Drew Brees. So I think he made a smart decision. I'm not sure. Cam is in a different spot, so I kind of get that, but I think he still probably needs to swallow his pride and take a backup role somewhere.
Yeah. And maybe after more as this year develops, we'll get another Trubisky-esque situation with someone where he might come in as competition instead. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the thing that a lot of people are steering away from Cam from is just, I didn't notice how significant his injury history was. 3-foot injuries, a hip injury, a head injury, and four other injuries varying between head, chest, etc. I didn't realize how many injuries he actually had.
Yeah. And that's been the downside to, he's been great, and, his mobility has made a huge difference for that offense, but, it's kind of come at a cost too. And then plus, I think there is something to the fact that, he has not seemed to get some of the same calls as some of the guys like Rodgers or Brady or some of those guys. And that's, I don't know. You can argue, I guess, both ways there in terms of he does run more. And so the refs are probably maybe a little bit either, I don't know if they're more hesitant or, more used to thinking of him, as running and being a legit, fair game target. But, at the same time, I think he does have a legitimate gripe there in terms of, getting some sort of late hits and driven into the turf and stuff like that, and not getting those calls that some of those other quarterbacks have gotten. So it hasn't all just been, his scrambling. It's been, some of the abuse he's taken in the pocket too.
Yeah. And I do think one of the funny things is that he was out of all like the running quarterbacks, like rewinding the clock about 4 years with him, Russell, Colin Kaepernick when he played in the NFL, all of them, he was the one who would run through you. He was willing to put his body on the line. And a lot of people back then started wondering, why is Russell Wilson not running as much? He stopped running. He's not as mobile. What's going on? And then I think that really showed the parallel how Russell has had minimal injuries. He stopped taking the shots he used to. Right. And meanwhile, Cam, on the other hand, kept taking the hits and can't stay healthy because of it. Yeah. And even Lamar Jackson, it worries me, but he's swifter and he evades more than Cam does. So points to him. But still, that's the thing that worries me about it. At the end of the day, Russell learned that you need to eventually avoid the hit. You can't run all the time. And I think that's what hurts Cam the most.
Yeah, and Wilson would never. He definitely doesn't have the body type of Cam. I mean, Cam's big enough to take some of that punishment, but Russell Wilson would. He's tough for a little guy, but toughness only goes so far. He can't take that kind of punishment.
Right. Also, reverse reaction is Judah too lazy to switch accounts. Well, hey Judah, good to have you with us. He's still going off with Odell. I mean, I got to give it to him. He's sticking with him. I'll give him that. Thomas,
like a captain on the Titanic, just gonna ride it all the way down.
There you go. Except this Titanic had quite a lot of kitchens, Freddie Kitchens.
Yes.
That wasn't that great. Thomas H here. His conspiracy theory. Bill Belichick already knows the season is canceled, which is why he's unconcerned about signing a legitimate starting quarterback this year. Shots at Jarrett Stidham. Okay.
If anybody would know, I mean, Belichick probably would. That would be a Belichick move, is to be able to, predict that something like that was going to happen. But I don't know. I think it's just more. I see where you're going with there, but I think it's just more that he's got a type for the quarterback that he wants. I think, who was it that somebody had sort of come across this old memo of what Belichick really likes in a starting quarterback. And I think, Stidham really kind of fits a lot of that. And I was kind of interested. I was hoping that the Patriots would take somebody like Jordan Love, because I wanted to see if Belichick could adapt, if he was willing to adapt to sort of a new model of quarterback for the NFL. But I think last year, that fourth preseason game, he played Jarrett Stidham, I think, the whole game. And I think they kept the starters in there with him. And so that really seemed to be Belichick trying to see, what have I got in Jarrett Stidham? Is he a guy that can, start for me if need be? And so I actually think it's legit. I actually think that he thinks he can roll with him. He doesn't see, and maybe Stidham's not the guy that Belichick wants long term, but I think he looks at it as his strengths and weaknesses fit Belichick's system better than signing somebody like Jameis or Dalton or Cam, or trading for a Foles or whoever. So I think it's legit, but we'll see.
I do think one of the interesting things is that, especially in terms of Patriots backups, like the last big backup that the Patriots had was Garoppolo, obviously, and we got to see him in actual games, and he did what Garoppolo does. He was eerily consistent and solid. Like, there you go. Stidham has thrown 4 passes in his NFL career in a game, which makes me wonder, how much do you think he'll actually start? Because they brought in Brian Hoyer, who, if I'm not mistaken, has played with the Patriots before. I'll have to double check that. What do you think are the chances that maybe in training camp or preseason, Brian Hoyer comes out week 1 for New England?
I don't think so. If Hoyer starts for them, then I think really Belichick then might be trying to tank for Trevor or something like that. That would surprise me. I think, I mean, after having Stidham sit for a year, I think that if he wasn't confident enough in him, I think they would have probably gone for somebody else. Maybe I think it'll be Stidham, but we'll see.
Interesting. Do you think with New England, I know Edelman's still been going pretty high. How do you think I think this makes James White look a lot better to me, because I don't know how Stidham's going to do. I need to probably watch some of his college tape to see what style of thrower he is, but I'm expecting a lot of checkdowns.
Yeah. I always have a hard time messing around with the Patriots backfield. I just wouldn't. I mean, a lot of backfields are messy now. So I guess you can make more of an argument for saying that, the Patriots really aren't that much different than, a lot of teams anymore. But to me, that's just, gosh, that's a tough, that's a tough, I would maybe, use them as depth or something, but that would be about it. I just pulled up, his Stidham's preseason numbers from 2019. So the final game, so Belichick actually put him out there a good bit each game. So he had 19 attempts or more each game during the 2019 preseason. So the final one, he played the whole game and had completed 18 of 28 passes for 225 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Interestingly enough, I'm not sure if he just broke a big run in that one or what, but in that final preseason game, he also ran 7 times for 50 yards.
Really?
Yeah. So I didn't really remember him. He played at Auburn. So of course, I saw him a few times, but I didn't really remember him, in the games I saw. Of course, they were typically playing the Georgia defense and, it was maybe a little bit better at containing, but I didn't really remember him running all that much. So I don't think anybody's going to label him a mobile quarterback, but I guess maybe he's somebody that can, is willing to pick up some yards for you if you need them.
That will be really interesting. So I actually got to go in a couple minutes, but I do have something to ask you. We saw last year, kind of started by Matt Nagy, what a lot of people did in the preseason is they rested their starters for like 90% of the preseason. Which we'd seen starters come in for maybe like a drive, and then we always knew, okay, game 3 they're going to start, and it reduced injuries, but we saw a lot of players last year come out of the gate really, really rusty. Yeah, especially Chicago. That was painful for me to watch for like the first 5 games. So, what do you think? Do you think that they'll go back to doing? Okay, starters still play in the preseason, or how much does the preseason matter at this point? Because a lot of people said, we could just cut it out. Doesn't matter. I don't know anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it's then also complicated by everything that's going on with COVID-19. And so even though I think the NFL will do everything possible to try to play the season, I don't know that that's necessarily true of keeping the preseason, intact and stuff like that. Like if they had to cut it down to a couple of preseason games or something like that, I think that might be on the table. But I don't know. That is a good question because I mean it's changing. There's less and less emphasis on guys getting out there, but of course we also had a lot of movement, in the offseason. Tom Brady going to Tampa, Phillip Rivers going to Indy, stuff like that. So a lot of rookie quarterbacks coming in. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I really don't have a guess on there because there's so many moving parts between the trend that we've seen going and all the changes that are going to happen with COVID-19.
Right. I think I'm completely with you on that. All the players coming and going. There's been a bunch of. This has been this offseason honestly was really exciting in terms of where players went. Really capped off by Tom Brady, especially. But it's going to be. I think the preseason. This is the year the preseason matters more than ever to me. Honestly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So we'll find out. We'll find out a lot Thursday night.
Yeah, I'm excited. So Thursday we get the schedules. So I guess Saturday, are we still on, or does Tuesday work? Are we going to the once a week thing now?
I think we're still planning to do Saturday because I told Judah, or maybe mentioned it to both of you even on the podcast last Saturday that we would at least get the schedules this week. So I figured we could, if everybody was free, we could still do Saturday. That would give us something to talk about, and then we can of course reevaluate from there. So
yeah. All right, cool. So Saturday we'll be back talking about the NFL schedules and why you should never play against the Ravens defense. And also, I promised this like a month ago that I would bring in something for us to do. And hopefully I will have that segment on Saturday.
We've also got to remind Judah to take the Wonder Lick.
Right. Yes, we do. We must compare. Oh, yeah. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
So reverse redaction, if you're still watching, if you're still tuning in, take the Wonderlic test and check your email.
Just go do it right now.
Yeah, do it now.
He'll send you the link again.
Yes. All right. Any last words for us, Jared?
That's all I got for tonight.
All right. Well, you seem better at outros than me. So do you want to finish us off tonight?
I don't know that I'm better at them. I can do it. I don't know that I'm better at them. It's just sometimes I see like you guys, don't always have something, and I'm like, oh, we could do this. So I usually just jump in on those. But sure. So I'll just finish it off by saying, thanks for joining us. We're not going to do a live stream of the schedule reveal like we did the draft. We do have some standards here. We'll just talk about it on Saturday. So be sure to come back and join us on Saturday because the real life schedule does make an impact on the fantasy schedule, especially in weeks 15 and 16. And a lot of times even at the start of the season too, where you want to get off to a good start and not find yourself in a big hole. So we will be here to break all that down for you. So come on back Saturday at our regular time of 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central.
Right on. I could not have done it better. We'll see you next time. And I still got to hit the button.